Hey, welcome back to another episode of the People Lab podcast and video. Today we've got a question. What are the root causes of division and disunity in the workplace? Now, the reason why we care about this is because our mission with the People Lab, when we go in to partner with businesses, is we solve the problem of division and disunity in the workplace. We do that by focusing on 4 key topics: communication and culture, execution and teamwork, leadership and supervision, and personal development and growth. So we're going to answer this question from a couple of different lenses today. One more time, the question is, what are the root causes of division and disunity in the workplace? And we're going to answer it with 3 main points today. Number 1, organizations don't drift towards unity. They must be led there. Number 2, problems should be solved, but people should always be valued. And number 3, are we leading with our preferences or our convictions? So as we get rolling into this, I want you to give yourself a grade on a scale of 1 to 10. Grade your team, your immediate team, on your current culture of unity. So give yourself a grade. 1 is not good at all. 10 is like, hey, we're headed in the right direction. We couldn't be doing any better. On a scale of 1 to 10, give your team a grade on your current culture of unity. Now here's a tough question. What is your team's current culture of unity costing your organization? So if you gave yourself a grade of an 8, what's the difference between an 8 and a 10, and what's that costing the organization? If you gave yourself a 5, what's the difference between a 5 and a 10, or a 5 and an 8? And what's that costing your organization? This is a tough question because it's not a clear-cut answer, but it does really, really matter, especially on your specific team. This is what we're talking about right now. So I want you to zoom out just a little bit now, the same question, but for your department, not just your immediate team. On a scale of 1 to 10, grade your department's culture of unity. And culture, remember, culture is the way we do what we do and the way we allow it to be done. So the way you treat each other and the way you allow each other to be treated. The way we talk about each other and the way we allow someone else to talk about someone else on our team. Like it's a great picture of what we're trying to look at in your organization, in the locker room of your organization. So we talked about your team. Now we're going to zoom out a little bit to your department. What's your department's current culture of unity costing the organization? So what grade would you give your department? And then what is that grade on a scale of 1 to 10? What's it costing the organization? And then we're going to zoom out one more time. So we started with your team, then we zoomed out to your department. Now we're going to zoom out one more time for the entire organization on a scale of 1 to 10. Give your organization a grade for the culture of unity on a scale of 1 to 10. Now, my question is, what is that culture of unity? What's it costing the organization? It's not a fun question to answer, but it's very relevant. It's very necessary. And the organizations that lean in and answer these tough questions, they're the ones who are going to move forward, not only just surviving, but thriving in more ways than one. And a lot of times it feels like we take 2 steps forward and then 1 step back, or maybe 3 or 4 steps forward and then some steps back as well. That's okay. That's actually normal because we're moving forward. It's not a switch that you flip off or on like a light switch. It's a dial that you turn up, kind of like a dimmer switch. We're going to turn up the heat, turn up the fire, turn up the gas on it, turn up the intensity and the intentionality on your current culture of unity, because this is such a huge thing. Now, culture is the way we do what we do and the way we allow it to be done. And what we've just done, we've applied culture to internal communication. With internal communication, we have 5 different layers. It's just like concentric circles. You start in the center, and that's you, your individual self. Everyone who works in your organization, you're telling yourself a story about what's happening, your perception, your perspective about what's happening in the organization. And then you zoom out 1 level to level 2, and that's your team, your immediate team. Then you go out another level, and that's your department. Then you go out to level 4, internal communication, and that's interdepartmental. So that's when the customer service team, how they interact with the sales team, or how the sales team interact with IT. Like all those, every different department, how they're functioning towards another department in your organization. That's level 4 on internal communication. And then you zoom all the way out to level 5, which is the entire organization. It's the 30,000 foot view. For organizations that dive into this conversation, they're the ones who are going to see what's right, what's wrong, and what's missing, and they're going to be able to evaluate it and then make the necessary changes to continue to move forward. Now, this matters to you because you're in business, you're in a nonprofit, you're in the organization you're in to make the greatest impact you could possibly make. And in order for us to do that, we want to look at this culture and see what's your current culture of unity in your organization. What does it look like? And then what's it costing your organization? This is exactly the reason why when my team and I partner with organizations, we solve the problem of division and disunity in the workplace. Because we don't know everything about what you do, but we do know people. And we know that organizations don't drift towards unity. They must be led there. And they're led there every day in every way by you, me, everyone who works in our organization. So that's why this is such a huge thing. In every video we shoot, every book that we write, every lesson that we teach, every session that we do in public, every conference, every workshop we do comes down to solving the problem of division and disunity, because those problems matter because you matter. We want to do everything we can to walk this walk with you as you're doing the thing that you're built to do. Execution and teamwork is a huge part of what we try to do. And what we're looking at here with this mindset, problems should be solved, people should be valued. If you and I are on the same team and we have some communication that seems a little bit faulty or a little bit janky or doesn't quite work, doesn't quite resonate, maybe it's garbled communication or implied communication from our clarity grid exercise, whatever the situation is, then we've got to take the information we've been given and then choose, okay, is this, am I going to be part of the problem or part of the solution? Am I going to try to help execute the plan that's been passed on to me by my department lead, by the organizational leader, by the CEO? Am I going to try to take that, or am I going to try to convince them that what I think is really a better way to do it? That's a big part of what we see every day through the lens of execution and teamwork. Because if we're not working together on the same team, even though we might be in the same building or in the same organization, different departments, different locations, but if we're not on the same team, then everything bottlenecks. Everything is a lot more difficult than it has to be. Everything just kind of struggles through, which is why we focus a lot on what it takes to be a great teammate. One of the exercises we do in our in-person workshop is, what are 8 traits of a great teammate? And we make a list. And then what are 8 traits that we just won't tolerate? The reason why we do that is so we always have top of mind what we're looking for. I told you we've got 2 jobs whenever we partner with an organization. 1 is to keep the locker room from becoming toxic, and 2 is to remove the blind spots from the leaders. And a lot of times in the area of teamwork and execution, we've got these blind spots, and they fall under our guise of preferences. Because you have preferences and so do I. Hey, preferences are good, you should have them, but we just can't run with them all the time. We can't only want to do what we want to do the way we want to do it. It doesn't work for your kids or your grandkids in school. You can't just do the assignments that you like or that you think you know how to do or the things that you think you're going to get a good grade on. We can't go through life and just cherry pick the opportunities that we want to be part of. And when we do try to do that, because sometimes people do try to do that, right? When we try to do it that way, we're forfeiting the great leverage of teamwork. We're forfeiting how we do what we're built to do when we're all on the same page, when we're doing the thing that we're built to do the way we're built to do it. Because then we get a chance to serve our customers and our members, nonprofit sector. We get a chance to serve them so well, it doesn't feel like we're swimming upstream. A lot of time there's this big difference when the idea of teamwork, and it really comes down to this one idea. There's a big difference between acceptance and tolerate. Just because you tolerate me doesn't mean you accept me. Just because I tolerate you doesn't mean that I accept you. So a lot of times what we do is we have the bar set so low in the workplace. Well, I don't really like that person or what that person stands for or whatever their appearance, like there's something that just kind of rubs you the wrong way. I don't really like that about them, but I'll tolerate them. You ever heard anybody in your workplace say, well, I'll tolerate it? That's harsh, man. That's tough. And when we do that, what we're saying is my preferences matter more than the convictions of our company, the core values, the mission and the vision of what we're trying to do. Because nobody has a mission of tolerating people. That's not what we do. When we're going to serve people, we don't want to tolerate them. We want to accept them. Doesn't mean you have to agree. We'll talk about that in a minute. That it's not all about agreeing, but in this stage of life, we're recording this in Q2 of 2023, and there's never been a greater opportunity for you to put your fist in the air and tell people what you're not going to do or what you're not going to take. We're not going to take. Like, we've never had an opportunity where we could do that more online and off. And the problem with that is now that's become a little bit more accepted, a little bit more mainstream, a little bit more the status quo. Instead of being for people, we're more known by what we're against or what we won't accept. And if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. Hey, listen, am I against some stuff? Yeah, sure. Who cares? I refuse to be known by what I'm against. I want to be known by who I'm for. And that lane is wide open. I invite you to come join me in that. I want the people who are on my team to know that I don't just tolerate being around them or working with them. I accept them for who they are, and let's move forward together, man. There are a lot of great things that we can do. Hey, I hope that my team, I hope that they don't just tolerate me. I hope that they accept me. I hope that they are continuing to be on this bus ride and continuing to do this thing that we're doing because they see the vision and they see the value in what we're doing. That's a huge win. And in the idea of execution and teamwork, when we get a little bit off kilter, a little bit skewed on that, it can really disrupt not just me and the way that I think, but also the way that my team functions and the way that the department grows or doesn't grow, the way that it is constantly battling some cultural issues, right? And then you zoom out for the organization, and some organizations are kind of big ships. And it takes a while to turn a big ship, right? But it goes a lot better when we realize what it takes to be able to execute well and become a great teammate. We talk quite a bit about leading from your preferences versus your convictions. And the truth is, we've been battling that since mankind. I'm not here to preach at you. That is the thing that got Satan kicked out of heaven. About our preferences, not our convictions, because we want what we want when we want it, and we want it at least today, if not yesterday or a couple of weeks ago. We bring our preferences to the table. I'm not saying you shouldn't have them. You should have them, but don't try to push those forward. When someone, an organizational leader, a team lead says, hey, what do you guys think about this? Please don't just sit, crickets, don't sit idly on your hands and just wait. Look, you've got some ideas, bring those to the party, but you don't always have to lead with them and have to push them forward. You and I are not that different. We all have our preferences and ways that we prefer to do it. And I'm not saying you shouldn't have them. You should have them. Just be aware of them, and then you don't always try to push them forward. We've got to recognize someone's point of view and their perspective, even if we don't feel the same way. And you can for sure do that, even though that's not the norm right now. I don't think we're too far from being able to do that. I said, well, I go 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Well, the great news, it's always just 1 step back towards unity, 1 step back towards the middle. And we invite other people to come be part of that as well. Now, leadership and supervision, there's a great question behind the question here. And the question that we're talking about today, remember the question is, what is the root cause, or what are the root causes of division and disunity in the workplace? And the really difficult question for managers and leaders is, what is a manager's role? What's management's role in dissolving division and disunity in the workplace? And it's really 3 simple steps. We're boiling it down to 3 simple steps. We're going to put handles on it for you. Number 1 is notice it. Number 2, neutralize it. And number 3, navigate it. Notice it, neutralize it, and navigate it. The first thing you have to do is notice it. You can't change something you don't recognize. You can't change something that you don't notice. You're not just going to trip into cultivating a better culture and ignoring some of the issues that get in the way. So we want to notice it first. And in order for you to notice something, you've got to be engaged with your team or your department or your organization. It's kind of like a driving metaphor. Whenever you're driving, like when I'm driving, I've got one eye on the road and then one eye on the rearview mirror. So I can see and make sure. I got 3 kids. I got to make sure that everything's going well behind me, right? So from a management and a leadership perspective, you've got to have your mind on the vision, have your eyes on the vision, what's ahead, absolutely. But then also have one eye on the rearview mirror to see, okay, how's this department functioning within itself? How's this department functioning with the other department, with another other department? It's tough. I mean, call it what it is. It's tough, yes, but when you've been given a lot's required of you, right? That's not tricky. That's just something that we all need to lean into. Awareness can be your greatest superpower in leadership. Your self-awareness and then your awareness of others and of your team. That's a huge thing. Don't forfeit your opportunity to have your superpower, to leverage it. But whenever you say, I'm just not really going to be that engaged. I mean, I'm going to come and I'm going to do the meeting, but I'm not going to be engaged with the folks that I'm leading. Hey, listen, I know you might not think that's how the way that you want to do it. That's probably not the way that you think, this is the best way for me to lead. But sometimes it's in your blind spot and you don't see it. Or we get so focused on the content or the agenda or the press release or some of the external communication, which is it's a good thing to think about. We'll talk about in another video. But a lot of times we get so focused on that part of it that we don't intentionally neglect, but sometimes we do neglect thinking about and thinking ahead within our internal communication. And that's one of the things I want to caution us against today. So the first thing we do, what's the leadership's role, is you've got to notice it. The second thing is neutralize it. Listen, you can't allow it to continue. And definitely don't participate in it. Whenever we in leadership, whenever we not only we see something and we let it go, but whenever we take it up a notch and we perpetuate it, now it's a different kind of a game. Now it's not what's best for the team or best for the organization or even what's best for the people that we serve. Now it's all about me, myself, and I. Now it's all about what can I get? What's the path of least resistance? And a lot of times, instead of leading people, because leading people is hard. Instead of leading people, we want to push agendas. That's different. I'm encouraging you not to do it that way. Andy Stanley's a great leader, author, speaker, pastor, communicator, and he had the opportunity to speak at the Georgia House in the state of Georgia. And he made this statement. He said, disagreements are inevitable, but division is a choice. And then he goes on to say, if you have to divide people to lead them, you're a terrible leader. And I agree with that 100%. And there are times where I would look back at Mike and myself and my own leadership. And today, if I were to have a conversation with that version of Mike, I said, man, what were you hoping to accomplish? Because I didn't intentionally try to divide people, but certainly, people who resonate with your cause and with your method and with your preferences, right? And a lot of times we'll invite, we want the whole table to be filled with people who see what we see the way we see it. And that's really, really difficult to lead a team and an organization and be a really connected part of community when that's the way that you operate or that's the way that you lead. So you've got to neutralize it. As a leader, you've got to neutralize it. You can't let it continue. That's not something that you can do. Don't compound the situation by adding fuel to the fire. The third thing is you've got to navigate it. You've got to lead through it. The way that we get through it, the leader's role, the manager's role in disunity and division is you've got to lead through it. You've got to navigate it. And in every organization, there are three things. There's friction, confusion, and underperformance. And the way we navigate it, it's called leadership. And it's not easy. Even if it's simple, it's not easy. And one of the most difficult things is to try to lead people to see something that's simple, but motivate them and inspire them to do the thing that's not easy to do. Because you and I are not that different. And you love to do the thing that you enjoy doing the way that you enjoy doing it. You have your preferences, and I have mine. We should still have them. But those preferences can't run our life in the way that we lead. John Maxwell had a fabulous quote. Everything rises and falls on leadership. It sounds great when you read it in a book. It's in his book, The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. Everything rises and falls on leadership, which sounds great until I look in the mirror and say, okay, yeah, but Mike, you're the leader of this. So the good news is you're some of what's right with it, but also, in other news, you're part of what's wrong with it, right? So for us as leaders, we've got to embrace that and not try to duck it, not try to blame it, Listen, the reason why we don't do more stuff together in our organizations and in our communities, it's not because who's going to get the credit when it goes right. It's who's going to have to wear the shame and the blame when it goes wrong. And for that reason, a lot of people say, hey, I'm not interested in partnering or collaborating with this organization because I know the reputation that they have. So just be aware of that, right? There's another quote by Jordan Peterson, and this is one that's really difficult, right? Conflict delayed equals conflict multiplied. When you know there's a conflict and you don't address it, not only are you allowing it, you're really encouraging it to grow and to multiply. Then it's not adding one on top of another, it's multiplying. It grows exponentially. Conflict delayed equals conflict multiplied. And a lot of times we don't want to have a hard conversation. I understand that. And back to my point earlier, now a lot of times, whether it's political or racial or whatever the differences are that we have, we're so quick to notice the differences and make those the issue instead of looking at a lot of the similarities and the common ground that we already have. Whenever a leader or manager notices or hears of some division or disunity in the workplace and they just stick their head in the sand and they do nothing, they're forfeiting their opportunity to lead well. That's hard to hear, but it's true. And you know this because sometimes you've been on the other side of it, where there was an issue that you really looked to your leader to lead well through, and they didn't. They chose to go around it or pretend like it didn't even really happen. That's a difficult thing, right? And that's not something that we really want to do. You know, the truth is, or maybe a reality is, a lot of times if people aren't directly affected by a situation, then their behavior and their choices are unaffected. They're just going to continue to go with their preferences, not the convictions, not of what's better for the organization or the community as a whole, but more about what I want and when I want it. The other lens we want to look at this through is personal development and growth. And this is very simply, we need to do three things. We need to equip, encourage, and empower our individuals to continue to grow so they'll be able to move forward, and we'll be able to move forward together and make the biggest impact on our organization and our market, whoever we serve, and our community, the other local organizations and the global organizations that we're partnering with. So when you talk about equipping them, you're talking about strategically and tactically with step-by-step plans for growth. It's not a mandate. You don't have to do it this way, but this is what I did, and this helped me that one time or maybe a bunch of times. I think a lot of times people choose not to grow, not because they don't really want to grow, but they don't really know where to start. So for us as leaders, when we choose not to try to help lead them and guide them, then of course division's going to grow, because you're naturally going to gravitate towards someone else. And a lot of times, if I'm not the person that you're investing in, or you're not investing in enough based upon my preferences and what I notice that you're investing in someone else, then of course I'm going to be a little bit jaded. And then it's going to grow. And that's where bitterness comes in, right? Bitterness doesn't come off the shelf as bitterness. It's something that starts as unmet expectations, and then it grows over time. And those unmet expectations are either unaddressed or underaddressed based on whose preference, based on my perception and everyone's perception, right? And then we get resentment, and then the resentment starts to grow, and then it gets gross and ugly. And then you get to bitterness, and we think, oh, finally we get to bitterness. That's the end of it. It's not the end of the bitterness cycle. It goes one more step lower to apathy. Sorry, not sorry. And then instead of caring and looking intently, it just goes to cold stares. Doesn't matter. I don't need you. I don't need to be part of this. I don't need this smile. And that really messes up a lot of things. So for us as leaders, whenever we look to our team members and our teammates, we want to try to help them. We want to equip them with some next steps, some great actions. We want to encourage them. Encourage your team, and then encourage your team to encourage the rest of the team. That's not tricky. Leadership 101, what gets rewarded gets repeated. If we'll invest the time to give people the steps to take and then encourage them to encourage other people, what we're going to notice is our culture. Remember, culture is the way we do what we do and the way we allow it to be done. When we start cultivating this culture of encouragement, we're going to see the encouragement ripples run throughout different departments. Interdepartmentally, it's going to be a great thing. And then everybody's going to be more on the same page. So we're moving more in the right direction. So we equip them, we encourage them, and then we empower them. As you go to do the thing that you're built to do, look for opportunities to accelerate your growth. Look for opportunities to help someone else. Whenever we empower someone else with leadership, that doesn't always come with another job title or a pay raise. Sometimes it comes simply with, man, I appreciate the work that you've done. It comes with encouragement, and it comes with a new expectation. Hey, we're going to raise the bar with you because of the goals that you have, where you want to go. One of the ways for you to get there is going to be to take this next step and then another next step. And I know that you can do this, and I'm right here to encourage you, and you walk with them. It's kind of like teaching someone to ride a bike. If you've ever taught someone to ride a bike, there's a right way. There's a bunch of right ways. There's for sure a wrong way. And I experienced this. I did this when I taught our oldest to ride a bike. I went to the place I wanted her to be, and then I turned around and I said, okay, come on. You can do it. Like, it was like, oh, come on, I know you can do it. And all she did was get frustrated. When did she start to get it? Whenever I went back to where she was, not where I wanted her to go, but where she was. And I put a hand on the seat, put another hand on the handlebars, and I was encouraging and guiding along the way. That's not tricky. You've taught someone how to ride a bike. And since you've taught someone how to ride a bike, you can also teach someone how to grow, teach someone how to become a better leader. And one of the best ways for us to do this is to equip them, encourage them, and then empower them to go and do more of the same thing. Now, of course, as we're landing the plane here, of course, this is not an extensive or an exhaustive list of all the root causes of division or disunity in the workplace, but it's a great place to start or continue the conversation. My team and I are for you. And we're not trying to build an audience. What we really want to do is connect a community and grow together. There are several ways for you to connect with us. We'd love for you to do that. You could join our email list. You can go to MikeConnCoaching.com and click the join the email list button. We'd love for you to do that. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel. At the time of this recording, Q2 of 2023, we have doubled our subscriptions in the past 2 months. Like, we're really excited about that. That means we're continuing to expand the influence, expand the community. So we'd love for you to subscribe and connect with us that way. Of course, you can follow us as well on social media. Whatever social media you're on, we're trying to be there as well. We'd love for you to like, follow, and share our content there. And then also, lastly, be on the lookout for our new book about internal communication. We're expecting that to drop in Q3 of 2023. We're hopefully hitting the home stretch of the re-editing and the re-editing of the book now. And we're doing this because all the way back around, full circle, because we want to encourage you and partner with you to solve the problem of division and disunity in the workplace. We're for you. We think you're fantastic. Have a great day.